I am never hiring somebody senior again.
That's what you end up in the VC trap, where it's like you have to keep building this team that gets bigger and bigger and bigger to be able to feed the machine. It might have changed all that.
How you build that company from now forward looks completely different from how you build a company in the last 20 years.
How do you think about you have a new job to be done?
We go AI first, and then contractor,
Yes.
and then person. We need the flexibility to make hiring mistakes.
Talk to me about how you make people more successful.
Giving them enough scope to be creative, but also giving them enough guidance to say, we're not going to do this. What matters the most is this weekly show of progress. That's what really allows you to be free.
Welcome to How I Hire, the podcast where we talk with senior go-to-market leaders about how they find, vet, attract, and grow new talent. Today, I'm joined by Manny Medina. Manny is the founder of Paid, which is innovating on how companies monetize AI agents. I've actually been diving deep with Manny on our AI coach and how we might monetize it in the future. I've been learning a ton. So if people are building AI agents, call Manny. Before that, Manny founded Outreach, which redefined or defined the role of SDR. Manny, at some point, we may also touch on the story, but early in the days at Outreach, I remember when I met Manny, it was actually built around recruiting and hiring, which is a fun story in and of itself. So Manny, I'm really excited for our conversation. Welcome.
Good to see you. Yeah, likewise. Let's do it.
Awesome. So you've been CEO of Outreach, which grew to hundreds of millions of dollars, more than 1,000 employees, and now you're back rolling up your sleeves with Paid. We were talking earlier, but I'd be fascinated to hear how your view on hiring generally has changed between the two companies. I'm sure there's a lot, both in terms of the fundraising environment, but also this new era of AI that have influenced how things have changed.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. So I decided to jump back in the game for two reasons. One, we had a problem, that I lived in my own shoes at Outreach, but also because I think that we're in a fundamentally different time to build a company. The tools are different, our audiences are different, the expectations are different, and it allowed me to sort of get a fresh new canvas on how to design an organization to pursue the mission at hand. And there's so many things that I took away from Outreach, and so many things that I'm never doing again, or never is a strong word, but that I'm revisiting. And the main thing that I'm not doing is following the playbook that I was sort of like given by startups and by sort of like VCs and advisor at Outreach. And the reason is that how you build that company from now forward looks completely different from how you build a company in the last 20 years. So let me start with the hottest and most controversial thing. I am never hiring somebody senior again. And when I say senior, I'm saying somebody with like a VP title that came from a VP title and is looking for the C title. And this is the next step in their career. And you can only attract them if you give them a C title. No, we are all going to promote from within. You're going to come in, you're going to put in good work, good spots are going to open up, and you're going to take the job.
So Manny, I love that. I tend to believe similarly with Whispered, but at the same time, I'd challenge that. It's like, are there places that pattern recognition and having seen it a couple times before will help? Take RevOps where I grew up in, or take CS where you understand the motions so well. There are those people that are younger that can just figure things out and can throw things against the wall.
Yeah.
But you're also, I don't know where you're at in the growth journey yet, but as we were talking at Outreach, you hit that hyperscaling pretty fast. And you do see a lot of these AI companies now in that hyperscaling where maybe you don't have time to train the folks or pull people in. I'd be curious, does that perspective change once you hit hyper growth?
It may. And that, so just to backtrack a little bit. So at Outreach, we have to manufacture growth between 0 and 10 million. Once we hit 10 million, growth just came to us. The market tip, we were the leader. If you're going to set up a sales shop, Outreach was part of your stack. And that just propelled us. So like the 10 to 50 was just like trying to keep the wheels on the truck, as we were speeding down the highway. So we were hired, the easiest thing. What is the easiest thing to hire? Somebody who had experience doing the job in front of you, right? Based on an org structure that was templated. So every SaaS company has, an SDR, an AE, a sales engineer that passes the thing over to a CSM and an account manager. And then you fiddle with the books and whether a rep keeps the account for X many months and blah, 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 blah. So you play with that playbook, right? And we hit the 10 to 50 so fast that we had to bring in people that knew how to do the job. With the benefit of space and time now and experience, let's revisit what we did, right? We declared sort of a go-to-market approach as fixed, and we just slotted people into that go-to-market approach. We never challenged the go-to-market approach. I said, what do you need a CSM? You see what I mean? Why is that? What is that role that is needed? Or, if there's a CSM, what's the job of a CSM? Is it to hand train every single seat that comes in? Or do you give it the job of bringing in the renewal? And why? Go ahead.
I was going to say, I always ask people, tell me what the role of a CSM is. And I would ask it really early, and people would struggle to define it, right? And it was the classic catch-all of everything, right? Like, we need more testimonials. They'll go get those. We need 100%. To ask an exec meeting. So I totally agree with you on this, which is, and it really resonates, was we've been running that playbook for 15 years. And no one's rethought that, and people are starting to rethink roles completely, right? Like full funnel SDR instead of separate SDR, or the AE can have a SDR assistant that can do these things. And so I think that's a really important point that people need to take, which is don't just assume the org structure.
100%. And there's so much I'm getting very excited about this because the role of an AE. So, if an AE is not producing 4 times their OTE, then you have an inefficient sales organization, right? So if you pair an SDR on top of that AE and that AE is not hitting 4 times OTE, then you're double screwed. You see what I mean? You're adding cost to already inefficient organization. So to me, you have to define what is it you're going after, right? So if you're sales-led, then you have to figure out what your efficiency curve is, which has to be 4x OTE. That's it. Otherwise, your PLG is a bright fucking line right in the middle. You know what I mean? You're either on the left of that or you're on the right of that.
Yep.
If you're on the right of that, then you design your organization to drive, 100K plus deals, whatever, and your rep is producing 600K per year and you're paying 150. That's it. That's your equation. You move it up or down. But that's your equation. If you can't meet that, then you're PLG, and you have to be.
Yeah. And
Nothing
you're
else.
Investing more in marketing, you're driving those things, and yes.
100%, right? The same, and you can propagate that across the board. Talk about marketing. Marketing, you're also slotted into this very defined role. Oh, do you need a content marketer, or do you need a brand marketer, or do you need a product marketer, or do you need a whatever? A demand gen marketer, and they're animals that just do this one thing and they cannot do any other thing, and so you have to pick. And I'm like why? All these things are learnable skills. You see what I mean? And you may need one thing at the very beginning, and then you may need something else, and you don't just hire and layer because you need something else. So this is nonsense.
That's what you end up in the VC trap, where it's you have to keep building this team that gets bigger and bigger and bigger to be able to feed the machine. And I think AI might have changed all that.
100%. And I don't think it has changed that much though. I'm still seeing the division of labor, even in this era of AI. I was just looking at, for whatever reason, I was looking at some of the open recs at OpenAI and some of the people who were recently hired there. They're splitting market in the same way the market was split 20 years ago, without no point of view as to what is the right marketing strategy and organization for an organization like OpenAI. And I bet you I bet you Sam Altman's just not thinking about that.
And I think maybe it's what we said at the beginning, which is if you're in that hyperscale, you don't think you take the playbook. If you're in we're figuring it out, we're learning, and you're early enough where you don't have all that kind of employee debt, you can really rethink things, right? So you're at that place right now. I'm at that place right now where I have no employees. I'd be curious, the structure of paid right now, and then how do you think about new hires going forward?
So the structure of paid right now is flat.
Yeah.
and flat-ish, and that there is, I don't know, me cantan dos, cuatro, seis, ocho. There's 10 engineers or so, and they all report into Rush, and everybody reports into me.
Mhm.
That's it. That's the structure. And you focus instead of like org charts. I'd rather have like mission charts. So we have part of the team that is dedicated towards a self-serve product that we're going to launch that addresses the needs of agent builders, right? Our mission is to grow the agent economy, and the agent builders are early companies, right? And they don't go through sales cycles. They don't have a lot of money. So we have a free product that they can use, get familiar with it, grow with it, and as they become, viable concerns, they pay us. So that there's a group building that, and Raj owns that revenue number once it shows up. Mm-hmm. Then we are now selling pay to SaaS companies, meaning SaaS companies that have to grow by selling agents. We have a whole infrastructure for them that is not what you got out of like the Zuoras and the ChargeBees and the Salesforce buildings and whatever. Like we have the whole infrastructure for you to manage your agents and monetize them. So there is a group that is selling that, and that group has another group of people that is making sure that we're selling and that we are manufacturing, good traction, good pipeline, and that we're building for that group. And then there is another group that is just me right now that is into this third really large enterprise market, solving a problem that I can't tell you about it right now, but I'm working on. That is just me. I'm a solopreneur on that one. I know that market really well. I'm gonna go get product market fit myself, and once I do that, I'll build a team around it. That's it. That's the org. And,
I love it.
And see, like we're all aligned around the mission. You see what I mean? And when you're aligned around the mission, you don't need titles. You see, the reporting structure is kind of meaningless because we're either going to hit the target on the mission or we're going to try again. So those are the only two things that matter.
I love it. The other benefit I found of these lean org structures, and it's not just lean because we're startups, right? It's lean because we're looking at least hiring differently. I think I am, or I know I am, and I assume you are. One thing I found is I can innovate at a much more rapid rate as well too.
Yeah.
So, for example, we had top of pipeline flowing really well, really early. I think the mission resonated with people, but people were too cheap on their careers, right? So I just spent 6 weeks iterating on that, tightening it up as fast as I could. And we were able to basically go from 0% conversion to 45% conversion overnight.
That's exactly right.
And I didn't have to ask anybody. I didn't have to check in. I didn't have to kind of deal with it in any way, shape, or form. It was just boom, 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 boom. I see a problem and I fixed the entire funnel. Also, yeah. I understood the entire funnel, which was insanely powerful as well too.
Right.
So it's like I knew where to go to make changes.
Right. So it's a bit of a cheat because you come from sales ops. So like you can wrap your head around the funnel real quick and find and spot problems. And that's sort of like the same hypothesis here. It's like, we have a very small team attacking this segment, which is, SaaS companies that are building agents, and for them, agents is an existential threat or an existential opportunity.
Yes.
Those are not declared. So it's not like I can go to Clay or like, 6 Sense or Common Room and say like, find me all the SaaS companies for whom this is an existential threat. You kind of have to talk to all of them. You see what I mean? And find out for whom they're taking this stuff seriously and who is thinking that this is a fad and will pass. The only challenge, even as a small company, that you face, that you have to get good at, is aligning everyone on on some kind of measure of activity and outcome for the period, right? So like a sprint, right? Mm-hmm. So for instance, we decided to go after, when we started the SaaS thing, we decided to go after public SaaS companies that have to, for whom this is do or die. We went after a few and we realized that for public companies, they're not going to make the switch to SaaS, to agents that quickly, because for them, the revenue recognition alone will kill them. You see what I mean? So they're going to be more laggards. That's not the right segment to attract right now. Okay, so let's go after sort of like the scale, but not public yet. And that's where we are right now. So like we organize a sprint. We figure out who we're going to go after. Let's go have those conversations. Come back. What did we learn? Is this looking good? Is this promising? The people engaged. Let's chase that all the way to like conversion. Measure the sales cycle. If it fits within the 4x OTE, boom, you got to scale that opportunity. You see what I mean? You got to put reps against it and go for it. If it doesn't, then you bring it home and you try something new. So we tried that with, the AI agent builders. And it turns out that, the sales cycle was 2 to 3 months, but the deal sizes were like really small. We're like in the 20 to 70 grand. Can't scale that. Like they just, it doesn't math. You see what I mean? So like that, you have to figure out another way to go to market, which is, self-serve. And we can make that decision very quickly if the team is empowered to just like pull the anthem cord and say, stop, this shit is not working. Move it out of sales, move it into something else.
I love that. Yeah. I do think say you're 20 or 30 million revenue, you start to have existing revenue streams. I think we may end up finding that some of the old playbook still works, right? It's like you still may need a marketing person or something. So it'll be interesting to watch as these companies that are, I guess, maybe to step a different way is like, how do you think about, you have a new job to be done? Are you going AI first and then people? How do you think about that?
So clearly, we go AI first and then contractor.
Yes.
And then person. And I'm not saying the contractors are not people, they're people too, but what I'm saying is that we need the flexibility to make hiring mistakes. And it doesn't matter what geo you are, it doesn't matter whether you're in Europe and the US, like making a hiring mistake is costly the smaller you are.
Yep.
And making a hiring mistake is costly when you're big, but you just don't see it. And this is the problem. Like most people think that, when you're big, you can absorb the hiring mistakes. You do, but it sucks too. And it sucks in a different way. It sucks in a way that you don't see it. Like it becomes operational debt in a way that you're not seeing it. To the point that you may make a hiring mistake when you're big that you can't even fix it because you don't know that it's a mistake. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So like the rubric here is that it's kind of like a motorcycle. The question is not when you're going to fall. It's if you're going to fall. The question is when you're going to fall. So you will make a hiring mistake. The question is when will you make it? This is why it's always better to find a contractor first. You see what I mean? Or like get a contractor relationship first before you harden it.
I totally agree. Culture and you probably experienced the same thing. We were growing so fast. You almost didn't know the mistakes you made because even the mistakes you made sort of look, it's like, great, when you're growing at 120% a year, even when you do something, it feels like it works, even if it doesn't fully work.
100%. And my man, Matt Milling, gave me this test. Is it better, no breath and bad breath? And like always the answer was like, it's better to have bad breath. And like, with the benefit of hindsight, no, bad breath was actually bad. Like it was it lowers the bar for the next person that you hire. And like the people around you knows that, you can get by with a lot less effort. And like, now we're, it used to be an A team and now it's sort of like a B+ team and it creeps up on you. So you have to this is a commitment. You keep the bar high and it's work to keep it high because it's harder to hire.
How do you find and evaluate contractor talent? Given that you can swap it out fast, are you more like, you see, a 10-minute interview, you seem impressive, let me throw you at it? Are you hiring just world-class people that are charging a very high rate? Like, how do you evaluate the contractor side of things?
The same way that you would evaluate a full-time employee. Because like the hiring the contractor allows you to see whether this is a position that you're going to have to grow into it or not. And you also have to hire with a view that AI may replace this. This is why you're moving into a contractor, because you can sway in either direction. Again, like the assumption is that you will make a mistake, and if you make a mistake, you can back out. But you have to put all the same amount of work as if you're making a full-time hire.
Given that contractors, to some degree, contractors are kind of depending upon that contract. So they may not be long-term as incentived to automate themselves out of existence, right? If you have an employee, Jane, you're my head of marketing, don't worry, you're still my head of marketing, go innovate, versus a contractor where you're like, Bob, you are doing my marketing. Bob's loving that 150, 200 grand a year that he's doing as a contractor. Like, does it actually make it harder to automate with contractors?
I don't think it makes it harder. I think it's just as hard if you were to hire a full-time person. Because so you just go through the decision-making process, right? It's like you see this need, everyone is out of cycles. You can't see your way, AI doing this without some kind of like supervision. So you bring in a contractor. If the contractor is smart, that contractor will try to automate himself out of the job so they can actually produce more.
Yes.
You see what I mean? So the contractors, for the same unit of hourly rate, they can produce more of new stuff. And then you know that you got a gem in your hands, right? Like then you know that like this is how the job would have evolved, and the contractor just prove it to you. So at that point, you keep the contractor, to see a few more innings in the game, and then you figure out, you know what, this is the way we're gonna make this a full-time position. Contractor may or may not take it, but at that point, you know what you need to go do. You see what I mean? And
Yes.
the job is way more defined as opposed to not like somebody who comes in and just does the job as it's defined, never grows out of the job, and you see it yourself as like, all right, this could be done by a smart person who can automate 2/3 of the job, and then you replace the contractor with another contractor with the new rubric. You see what I mean? So this is the thing about contractors, is that you can observe yourself what could be done by AI, and then just bring somebody else who can.
I love it. On a past podcast, you said something to the effect of, I no longer hire senior talent. I only hire junior people, and then I supplement them with advisor/fractional. I'd love you to dive into that a little bit, man.
Yeah. So like it's interesting that in the SaaS playbook, as you were scaling, we were told to go hire the people who've been there, done that, or like the talent with potential, blah blah blah, or the people who have been at good shops, right? Good shops that had high bars and they learn a lot. And what I found out is that they came with a lot of baggage. So there's no such thing as a good shop. They were good at something, but they were really bad at other things. And it turns out that you were buying the good and the bad. You were buying the good habits and the bad habits. And the problem is that the good habits also came with a context, meaning they were good, but they were good for that market, for that operation. You see what I mean? Like, it was good to hire somebody from Marketo back in the day, right? Because they had great growth, good sales leadership, a lot of good things, but they were an inbound machine. So, like, guess what? Like, the majority of the go-to-market of the sales reps were used to a generous serving of inbound coming in every day from which they can pick.
Yeah,
you see what I mean? So they were not great at prospecting, and they could never get out of that inbound machine game. This is why it took him. Why they went to private equity, because they couldn't go out market. So the good and the bad comes in the same package. And so when you go, earlier in career, higher slope, more potential, then what you're doing is that you're educating them to be what you need for the job at hand. Mm-hmm. And if there is a been there, done that aspect to it, like if you need somebody who can tell them, what good looks like, you can supplement that with, an advisory position, which is way cheaper than hiring. It doesn't cost you any equity. It may cost you a little bit of cash and maybe a little bit of equity, but not much. And then it does two things. It allows you to assess the recipient of the advisory work, how good of a learner they are. You see what I mean? Can they learn from the advisor, which is in itself a signal? And B, allows you to then, get a lot of outcome and a lot of production that you wouldn't have gotten out of somebody senior. The first thing a somebody senior does is to hire somebody junior to do their job.
Yeah. Yep.
You see what I mean? So you end up paying twice.
Now you're saying the first thing a junior person should do is go out and find themselves a guide/mentor/advisor/
100%. And show up and like, dude, like that's a brilliant point. Like you show up as a package. I'm junior for the role, but I got all this advice that's going to help me figure this out. That's brilliant. That's a great way to show up.
I think that really is. Do you help? And I've actually done that in prior worlds as well. I've said, listen, you can grow here, here, and here. I have some of my really high caliber talent, and I've gone out and helped them get that mentor and advisor outside of there. And I've been willing to pay for that person. And I've had some people actually ask me, hey, can you do that mentorship and advisory for me? And I've charged them for it as well. So I'm curious, like, does that become a standard playbook for you guys, which is, hey, welcome, high potential junior person. Here is a budget for you. I, Manny, or your manager will go out and help you find that right person to help you.
So it's becoming that on the engineering side, where so we had a sort of like a crossroads really early on, where and I had it at Outreach too, which is interesting how different it turned out to be. So at Outreach, I showed up with my co-founders, and we're too busy to hire junior people. We're just going to hire people who are at our level or higher because we can't spend time training them.
Yeah.
Fine. So we did that, right? In Seattle, 2000, the early cycle of SaaS, right? Here, we tried to do the same. And we said, let's go find, I'm too busy to train anybody. Let's go find senior talent. And we couldn't. We're in London, dude. Like London has 12 million people compared to Seattle has 500,000 people, right? So or maybe 1 million persons. It's a much bigger pool of talent. It was still hard. But what was easy is to find earlier in career, very high potential, very high ambition, super smart. And it turns out that the amount of coaching that you have to put into these individuals actually scales, meaning it diminishes over time. They take on their own projects. They learn over time. And this is the trick. It's like you put them in front of customers that they're learning even faster. So this is why the forward deploy engineer model worked for us so well, is because you take somebody who is talented, smart, and then they develop good business manners in front of the customer. So you get the whole package. Now, I've done it only a few times, not all the time, but I've done it enough to see that this is kind of working.
And then you throw a gong or an equivalent on top of it, and then you can still coach at scale, right? You can say,
right,
that forward deploy engineer tripped into this puddle and didn't go well. I can give them coaching in a way that before I had to have them sit in the office and pay attention to them. So that, and then in the future, very soon, AI will be able to say, Manny, you need to listen to this call because it was a train wreck, or you need to pat him on the back because of X.
It could be. So we haven't gotten to that point yet because we're all in office.
Yeah.
And all the interactions are in person. Even our forward deploys, most of them, work in our customers' code base. So in that world, we get to see it early and we get to catch it. The second thing is that, we're not that big. So we're able to hand to hand, situation by situation, push them into it. But I'm seeing this model scale. Like I'm seeing this model scale really, really well. And the hardest part of the organization, which is engineering. Like everybody in engineering is like, oh, you have to go find the top of the tip of the top talent, or even Meta, right? Pay millions of dollars for that person. And I think that's bullshit.
I love that you just called that out. You hear every CEO say it's all about top talent. It's about hiring the 1%, right? And you even said I need to find super smart, high potential people. How do you evaluate that, right? Let's maybe shift over to how do you interview that? What have you learned both from your outreach days and then as a new startup CEO? How do you evaluate that talent? What is because I think everyone pays that lip service. I mean, if the world's only hiring the top 1% and the A+ talent, there's 99% of the other people that are not there.
It's like that saying that, not everyone can be above average. And if you ask everybody, how do you feel? How do you rate yourself as a driver? Everyone is going to say I'm above average. That is mathematically impossible.
It is. And I remember there was this great, I think it was on your podcast where you talked about you interviewed the TaskUs CEO and you talked about this is a divergent, but definitely listen to Manny's podcast. It was, let me quote it and tell me if I was wrong, but he basically said, all of our customers are saying they're getting 80 and 100% savings in their support teams, but they're paying us the same, right? And so there's a lot of these things that CEOs love to say these phrases that actually aren't true. But I guess my belief is there is the bottom third to a half that's just not capable. And then there is a large portion that it's not just about, a lot of companies say, we hire the top talent. But I think there's a lot of it which is getting the most out of somebody once they're in your org as well, too. So I'd love you to hit on both of those. One is, how do you find those right people and what is good for you? And then the second part is, how do you get the most out of people?
Let's start with the first. How do you find the right people and get the most out of it? So I think that you have to create a recipe because, hiring the top people is the top people for the job that we are in, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in our job, there is a lot of, the ground is relatively fresh. We're building new stuff and there's a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah.
That's number one. Number two is that my co-founder, Raj, has he's very strict and pretty much married to this green line, red line framework. And I will explain it here a little bit, but I won't do it justice, in that he believes that every problem needs to be approached by putting out the internet every week and shipping every week, And then you may be set back. You may have to refactor. You may have to rewrite it, but it has to be steady, any progress every week. You don't create these long-term plans that you sort of like execute for a little bit, and then all of a sudden you ship and the problem is solved. You have to make steady progress. So once you put that constraint, there's people who fit in that constraint. And then you have to ask for evidence of living in that world. And this is where you have to make choices, right? Where you have to, we're assuming that if you haven't shown evidence of behaving like that in the past, of like shipping, it's very hard for you to show evidence of doing that here.
Yep.
How do you generalize this? I don't know, but I would say that you have to find out what are the principles by which you're going to operate that you think are going to make you successful, and then find people who fit into that principle that show, high caliber of intellectual raw power, et cetera, and then just pick those. And then the third angle that I would say is that you will make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure that you're prepared to correct mistakes earlier. There is no such thing as never falling off the motorcycle. You will fall off the motorcycle. The question is when. So assume you will. Be prepared to fix it. The corollary to this is that you have to let your spidey senses guide you. And I know that this sounds esoteric and a little horoscopy and whatever. But, we had a guy actually who was incredible interviewer, crushed it across the board, super smart. All the pieces were checking out. And then he came in and really negotiated aggressively and hard. Like really, really negotiated aggressively and hard. And that didn't sit well with us. And, we have a saying that, if we don't know what to do, just go sleep on it. Like there's nothing like sleep to help you guide you. So we went sleep on it. We came back the day after and we're like, this is not a hire. We don't know why, but it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
And once you realize that it's better to say no to a great hire than to say yes to a bad hire, then you start making the decisions with comfort.
That's a fascinating one. Without going into who the person was, I'm interested in, was that he negotiated too hard? And I would think objectively, I would say this is a CEO, Manny, who has led a company in the sales vertical. It's all about selling, getting aggressive and doing that. And so he most likely values that. And, some of these salespeople in particular are trained to negotiate very hard, right? Like if you don't negotiate, you get in trouble. Was that what set off your spidey sense? Or was it something else in the process? Or is his charisma overpowering something we're not seeing? Or how do you think about that?
Let me tell you something that's gonna make you cringe right now. So I'm sorry for making you cringe, but I have to say it so that it lands. You have hired in your career that one individual that does nothing but continues to negotiate their package and their promotion every fucking 60 days.
Yes.
How did that feel?
It felt icky. At some point, and I've had those people before, and it's a balance. Like you need to advocate for yourself. But if you over advocate, it just turns into this, every time we're getting together, I'm here to help you with what you need rather than you help me what I need. And it starts to piss me off and I start to get uncomfortable in those one-on-ones. And so you just help me understand what set off your spidey sense. I've had those people, and I think you take one swing at it when you get the offer, but if you lean over it, I've seen people lose offers off of that stuff before.
So that's,
by the way, I would add to that really quick. I never take a job because of the money. I take it for who I work with and what the trajectory of the company and do I get excited about it is. And and I see a lot of people being over obsessed over comp. And I think comp works itself out if you pick companies that are at that inflection point.
Right. So this felt like it was going to be one of those that I was just like, I feel like I was buying myself a problem. And look, I may be wrong, but like the tone and the sort of like frequency of the negotiation and the arguments that he was making about it just led me to believe that this was going to be one of those. And we all had one of those, and God, they're awful. They're awful because like every one-on-one is a session of advocacy for that person. And you start like hating your life. I'm like, how did I end up here? And like, you made your own bet. Now you have to lay on it. So like, I just, pattern recognized that one early. And I'm like, look, I may be wrong, but I'm not going to live that life. So, here we are.
I love those.
Go be great somewhere else. You know what I mean?
The value of Spidey sense, but also the pattern recognition, right? Like you'd seen it before, and probably at outreach, and you'd experienced it, and you said, "I don't want that again." I do think there is value in pattern recognition. My favorite hire ever was I was hiring a head of demand gen, and what you want is somebody that will not bring their playbook. And so she said to me, she said, "I've been there enough to know what plays to run, but I'm also mature enough not to bring my playbook with me," which was really refreshing, right? It's like, that's kind of what I'm always looking for versus I have been at this company, let me run that playbook.
Yeah. Yeah. There is this body of work, I don't want to get into it, about the maturity of an adult. So there is all this work around maturity of children, but there is very little work around maturity of adults. And adults mature in a different way, in that there is, 75% of adults, they see themselves in what they do, meaning what they do is who they are, and they're intrinsically connected. And it takes a really step of Jedi growth to say what I do is one of the many things of what I can do. And it doesn't represent me as a person, meaning me as a person, I'm great the way I am, and I'm smart and I'm learning. And what I do is not who I am, because I can do many other things, or I can do the same thing in many different ways. And that leap is super important in the professional development. And most people cannot do it. And in sales, it's really hard to spot it, because people are great people at selling themselves. But most salespeople are attached themselves to how they do their work, and they cannot separate it, and they fail when they go into a new environment.
Yes, that is a whole fun topic. I would, at some point, I'm gonna go think more about that one. Talk to me about how you make people more successful once they're within your walls.
It comes with the intellectual and actual physical freedom to explore how they're going to get to a goal. The thing that I learned at outreach is that we're not all the same aligned as to how we're going to let our team pursue their goals. Some of my co-founders are very strict in that I want you to do it in this particular direction, in this particular way. Some others were like, "Oh, you go do you and whatever." And in neither case work. And the reason it didn't work is that, the laissez-faire approach led to every single one of their team members to go pursue the goal in a particular different way. And there was no way to harmonize it. And that was its own problematic way. And then the one in which you were overly directed and micromanaging, people eventually quit.
Yep.
So there is an art in making people successful, in sort of giving them enough scope to be creative, but also giving them enough guidance to say, we're not going to do this, and we're not going to do this, but outside of that, get after it, girl. And I think what matters the most is this weekly show of progress. That's what really allows you to be free. Is that it doesn't matter how you do it, but on Friday we're demoing in front of everybody, and you're gonna explain what you did. So that creates a reward for doing it. And even if you're wrong, at least you did it, and now you're showing it. Most people are afraid to show their work to the public. So we create this little sort of mini session in which we're showing our work to everybody else. And it doesn't have to be engineering. It could be go-to-market, could be market, could be anybody.
I like it. I think you touched on one thing too, which is clarity of executive alignment is really critical to turning people loose, right?
Correct.
If you say, just go loose, but they don't know what's most important to the business, that can be challenging. But if you give that clarity, it can be good.
And as a first-time CEO, I just didn't see it as a problem. I was like, oh, sure, this part of the org was different than this part of the org, so you just gotta let them get after it in their own way. And that was dumb, to be frank. I mean, that in retrospect, that was not great. I should have been okay, so what is going to be our approach for people to pursue problems?
Do you have a story that can illustrate that one?
I mean, I don't want to get into the personal details. I'm more saying in the general sense. I had that approach at outreach, in which, because we're sort of 4 equal co-founders, each approached their problem solving in their departments in their own particular way that suited their personality and their style, and it felt fine in that time. At scale, it doesn't work. So you do need an approach by which we're all going to pursue opportunities. You see what I mean? And that could come in the form of operational, how do you operate? or it could be in the way we check in. Like, it doesn't have to be declared, but it has to be consistent, so that no two parts of the organization are hiring and behaving in conflicting ways.
Yeah, you said, for example, you picked up the red light, green light of your co-founder here at GetBig, which is nice. Okay, so you talked a little bit about you have to be able to correct mistakes quickly. How do you spot hiring mistakes? Or another way to maybe frame it is, what does that first 30 or 60 days look like, and where are you spotting and correcting those mistakes?
Because we're so small right now, we personally onboard everybody, and the mistakes, no mistake no mistake is fatal in hiring. Like, very few hiring mistakes are one way doors. I mean, they will cost you time, money, and lack of sleep, but nothing will really kill you.
That's
and so what you need to do is sort of like stay very close to the person early on to make sure that you're spotting, that you're correcting the scope and their matching of their talent and interest versus the opportunity to move the needle in the organization. And the earlier you are, the more of a fluid situation that is, or it has to be, because you don't have product market fit, you're not scaled. Like, the early signals may not represent, long-term growth, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's extra hard when you're building a new category, right? Like, if I was building a new ERP, a new CRM, I knew what I'm after. You know what I mean? But given that what we build hasn't existed yet, we have to build it and then go evangelize that exists and get, new customers, new believers. You have to navigate the whole crossing the chasm thing, where you're selling to completely evangelists at the very beginning, and they behave vastly different than the late adopters.
Yes, that is true. Manny, this has been amazing. It's really fun to hear somebody that has operated at scale take their lessons and apply them and keep iterating on the playbook. So I can't thank you enough for just spending the time talking through.
No, 100%. This has been great. Thank you for hosting me.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch how Paid evolves. What our conversations have opened up my eyes to some things that I keep pushing monetization further and further down the pipeline from the AI side of things, because I'm learning every day, right? Like, what we do is fascinating, but if people haven't checked out Paid yet, definitely do. And Manny, thank you for the time.
No, thank you. So before you go, so tell me, like, the couple of things that are sort of like you gotta go think about, or what are the two things that you took away from this conversation?
I got 2 pages of notes. People said sometimes you see the top of the head a little bit too much, but I'm always writing stuff down. I think the contractor approach is really interesting. Like, I think templatizing that more and taking higher caliber junior people is interesting. I go back and forth on that one in my own mind, but I like the idea of just really, really, really high caliber contractor. I think I'm still thinking that way, and I'll delve into it more in future podcasts, right? But I do worry those people are not going to be thinking about how to automate things. I think the package and the negotiation is something I preach to people a lot, right? Which is, it's not all about the comp, and you have to come in for the right reasons. And then the forward deploy engineer, I think, is really, I liked your point on put them in front of the customer and they're learning faster. And I was thinking in my own self around some of the companies that are building agents. We have 2 companies that have agents that work with us, and I spend a lot of time with their engineers. And they happen to be one group's in Argentina, for example, and I'm becoming friends with them. Where they're, it's like, I'm sure they're talented people, but I'm exposing them to a different side and level of things as well too. So those are some interesting things for me in the way you think that I'm doing. But I'll write it all up, and I'll send you all the other insights as well too.
That's awesome. So, great conversation. Thanks for sharing that with me.
Thank you, Manny.